What's good, my boy? I've been taking a little break from making any videos as well as really being on social medias. I've been using the internet as like a resource and stuff like that. But as when it comes to social medias, I've been trying to take a break. And every single time I do this, I just realize and start to despise it more and more. Now, there are certain things that are what I would deem all right, but overall, this over socialization in a way where you're either anonymous or there's just like a barrier of a cell phone from you and another person is just ridiculous. Like, take Twitter, for example, or X, right? It's just absurd. Like, it's just chaotic on there. There's really nothing you gain. People talk about free speech and it like as this like battleground for ideas and free speech. I find that not to be true. I find that it is usually just a cesspool of people trying to get a rise out of people, and the only way you gain popularity on there is by saying a cartoonish caricature version of your ideas, so a bunch of people are like rally behind it and you get a bunch of likes and whatnot. To me, it's just ridiculous. Uh, Nobody on there. I mean, even like people who, like, for example, I follow this one guy on there who's like someone I would consider almost genius level. Like, he's into all these like poetry type stuff, which a lot of people think that stuff's gay, but he's into like all these metaphysical poets. He's written like several books, got a PhD, all that type of stuff. But like even this person who's in academia, like a scholar, still just like the only way he gets traction is by like calling people retards. And that's really all you get. If you want to go on somewhere and just watch someone call other people a retard all day, be my guest. But in my opinion, I've been really getting into Catholicism over the past better half of this year. And the more and more I dive into it, I follow this pattern that I see a lot of other people follow. And it's kind of an unconscious thing you do, where there's such a plethora of knowledge within the church, and really the faith has a lot of longitude in it that a lot of people don't talk about, but it really does. It's very vast, and all the plethora of information you can learn, all the schools of thought within it. So people will gain a bunch of knowledge, they'll find faith, they'll find the truth in Christ, and then they'll gain like a extreme just like pride from this without knowing it. It's very hard to like identify because it's a pride in the truth. Like, you know, it's the truth. I'm not here to like do a bunch of apologetics. I'm going to touch on that a little bit here. But you have this idea of the truth, and then you bully other people who haven't been gifted this divine faith as you have. And instead of being grateful and thanking God for it, that in this time of confusion where people are committing suicide at an absurd rate, the most successful people in the world that seem to have everything, they can't become happy. They're not given that beautiful truth that gives just like this divine sense of what's a good word for it? Sustain. Like, your soul is sustained by this faith. You feel very much comfortable, not in a negative sense, but like your emotions aren't all over the place. It's like you're in a big ship in this ocean where everybody else in their fractured ideologies and worldviews are in little dinghies riding around in 60-foot swells. That's the beauty of the faith. But a lot of people become prideful, It's just like that is what the definition of a Pharisee is, isn't it? It is being not chosen. I wouldn't say it like that, because then that kind of gives people the belief that they're special. But I'll just explain it like this. The Jews in the Old Testament had this cross to bear as God's chosen people to kind of spread out holiness, which is separating from the privation of evil. They spread this holiness out. And because they were bestowed almost this like spiritual ark to be within, they had a lot of stuff that they had to do. And that's the most important thing about being in the church, is you're not just like touched on the forehead and something like that scene in the Lord of the Rings where Gandalf puts the rune on the door. You've got the mark of being in the church once you're confirmed and everything. But like you have a life to live after that has a lot of expectations and rules within it. I mean, that's the whole ascetical life. That is the reason of the church, to kind of guide and help people with that maintenance of that lifestyle. But people get more focused on the theology and the philosophy and all of the technicalities of the faith more than they do the actual practical elements of it. And it's absurd. Like, it destroys the whole concept of adopting a principle, taking in the sacraments, so when you interact with the world, they're changed by the emanating kind of, I'm trying to say this without being pretentious, because it's not a pretentious thing. It's actually like, it sucks in the sense that like, it's easier to just like be secular and go about your day. It's not easier in a spiritual sense, because you're kind of subjugated to all of these confusions and all of these worldly things without any defenses. But that defense also comes at a cost, that you don't get to just live however you want, which you see a lot of people neglect. So, yeah, it's very hard to maintain that ascetical practice while being on these social medias. I find it almost impossible if you get into the dead scroll, or the dead scroll, that's of the death scroll of just like endless threads and comment sections and whatnot, to not find one thing. Again, you're reading all this stuff, this negative stuff, in your own voice. Like, it's not like you hear their voice. Sometimes, that's a funny thing. If you listen to somebody a lot and you read it, and they have a unique voice, you can kind of hear it in their own voice. But all the anonymous stuff you read online, you're internalizing that with your own voice. So it's almost like your own voice reading it back, reading this negativity, and you internalize that. And it's very difficult to not find at least one thing along that infinite scroll that irks you enough where you want to comment. You want to say something crazy. You want to put something wild on there. You want to do something that would be extremely prideful and kills that ascetical life. And I've just found it to be the most practical thing, to just cut it out entirely. That's our, in the Beatitudes, that's one of our biggest teachings from Christ, is pluck out your eye. Cut off the hand. Right? Cut it off. Just get it out. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Retreating into some things that I enjoy, different hobbies and stuff like that. So there's that. But how do we manage that when we're also told to evangelize, which has kind of lost its focus nowadays, hasn't it? Most Catholics, there's lots of turmoil, not only within the church, within the people, different views of the church and what it should be. There's lots of turmoil. And people spend a lot of time playing apologist on these inner topics instead of going out and sitting with the prostitute, going out and sitting with the sinners and trying to kind of be in their domain, and through your love of them, in your desire for them to also have this truth and be in this ark as you are, we've adopted spending all of our time on inner matters, which it's great to have like some stronghold for everybody to go and run around and learn and build their faith in. That's a necessity. But we're not going to get anybody into the church. We're not saving a bunch of people if we're just focused on the inside. That's kind of a selfish thing. In my opinion, this is kind of what most of my focus has been lately, is how do you bring the faith to the modern world? I see lots of different examples of how people have thought to do this. You watch the evangelists in like the Protestants, and they're full-on doomer, just like put signs on them and go out in public and say, you're going to hell, bro, if you don't come. Or they'll just like go out. And some of them do a pretty good, decent job. They got their message wrong. They're selling they're selling tickets to people that have half the ticket missing. By that I mean their beliefs in the church and certain doctrines are wrong when it comes to sacraments, Mary, church authority, all of these things. So they give them, but I still give them props, because the Protestants are really the only ones, even though they kind of do it for videos and stuff like that, a lot of them, they're the only ones I actually see going to like downtown cities by clubs and preaching gospel to these people. But in this modern world, that's a very, very difficult way to bring someone to Christ. We live in the zeitgeist of cynicism, nihilism, and irony is the language of the masses. So if you go in one of these super secular, non-open-minded places, online especially, and you start teaching them certain ideologies or trying to explain to them Catholic views, Catholic dogmas, theology, they're not receptive at all. They think it's gay. They think it's corny. They think it's whack. They think it's weird. They think you're weird. So, from what I've found, and my interests kind of lie in a select group of communities. They lie in the artist scene, whether that be visual artists, musicians, literature, all of these things. Because I see a lot, this is like the most spiritual field out of the other two I will list. But these are the most quote-unquote spiritual people of our times that you see outside of the church. These are your pseudo-Buddhists. These are your New Agers, all that jazz. These are your people who worship, as it's called, the muse, the divine creation, the magic of creation, whatever they want to call it. But they worship that feeling you get when you create a piece of art. It's very zen. It's very... that flow state is one of the favorite words used by artist types. So that's one group. Another group would be... I'm going to label it the normie. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I don't mean that in a bad sense. I mean it as in, like, people who are not very... who just work a 9-to-5 job. They watch their TV shows. They go and do their things with their families and whatnot, but they don't really care too much. This is one of the harder groups to give the faith to or explain it to, right? Because these are the people who just don't really care. They just don't really care. Either they got too much going on, or they're just not interested in anything super metaphysical to talk about, right? And then the third group that I see the most in need, truly the most in need, is like the very online crowd, the gamers, the streamers, the little weird online niche communities. You've seen a lot of suicides, a lot of nihilism, a lot of politic worship in these communities, political worship, in these communities. And it is simply because they're 24/7 in that chaos, those 60-foot swells in the dinghy. The dinghy, for them, is that dopamine drip, the fun in whatever they're doing that is not long lasting. Gamers jump from game to game. Streamers and people who watch the streams jump from thing to thing. The same thing with other online communities, YouTube, etc. It goes on and on and on. People on Twitter. And the question really is, how do you take on that? How do you take on that role of preaching the gospel to them? Because we are called to do this. I've explained in past videos how when Christ says that the gates of hell will not prevail against us, that it wouldn't make sense in a defensive framework. How is a gate? Are they picking up a castle and ramming it towards us with gates? That doesn't make sense. No, we're supposed to be on the offensive, not crusader offensive, where we just kill people for rejecting what we believe. That's absurd. That's evil. But in the sense of, we're not Muslims here, but in the sense of we're supposed to be actively trying to spread this, right? And this is really the thing. And the only way I've found to do this, kind of a little bit effectively, is to get in the minds of these people. If it's like the online thing, I have a lot of years spent in these spaces, so I know a lot of the lingo. I know a lot of the relevant things in it, so I can kind of, you hear that funny thing, can you give it to me in gamer, not gamer talk, can you give it to me in game terms or whatever, like that sort of thing. For the meme, being able to do that, but just being able to relate to them, not demonizing them for their hobby. That doesn't. You might pick up a few stragglers on the way. You'll see people with a million followers who do that method, where they call you a loser. If they call people a loser who are into these things, but you're just picking up a stragglers, right? 1 million people out of all the people who are in these spaces is not that much. The goal is as many as possible. So you have to relate to these people. You can't just go in there and swing around a bunch of all these phrases and all this theology, all this stuff. It's just going to bounce back on you and they're going to attack you. You have to be a little bit strategic about these things and really think about it. And it's important. If you truly believe in the faith, and it's not just a blanket for you to wear and selfishly be comfortable, but something that you actually believe to be a cure to the ills of the world, this is kind of how you got to go about it. Yeah. So there's that. Also, we need to be aware that most people find their worldviews from one YouTube rabbit hole. Whether they're watching, what's that one video? I saw a video years ago. It's from 15 years ago. This video was reality is an illusion. There's several of these videos, and it's a weird techno matrix thumbnail, all green. I remember I watched that and I was hooked, because it was the first time that something metaphysical caught my attention. And this is the norm when something metaphysical catches people's attention. Whether they're outright dismissing metaphysics as the atheists do, or they're pronouncing some absurd metaphysical concept a lot of the New Age does, where it's just a big cauldron mishmash of ideologies, right? So what we need to understand is that's how most people are. Most people are either agnostic, like Joe Rogan types, they don't care, or they've got something that they're so sucked into and absorbed by that you would kind of have to take on that role itself to be able to communicate rightfully with them about the faith. Because any other ways, it's just foreign to them. And you really got to understand that this takes a lot of work. If you truly are passionate about this, it takes learning all these perspectives and being open-minded enough to go into these spaces. Like me, I don't think I could go downtown. I mean, I probably could, but I wouldn't want to. Go downtown in some city to some club with a sign and just like demonize all these people, and as I've seen people do. I think that'd be pretty uncomfortable. But it needs to be a part of our daily lives. It's a part of that ascetical life. The ascetical life kind of purgates you. You have all these series of tests, if you will. Like, are you going to choose good or evil? Are you going to choose to move towards the holy? Or are you just going to submit without a fight and move towards the evil? Some good examples. I've already given one of these, which is the chaos on social media. Are you going to feed into that machine more, or are you going to pull away a little bit? A funny one, gooning, right? Are you going to allow lust to just grip you and pull you and sink you down into the depths of that? Or are you going to fight against it and say, no, pluck that eye out and walk away from it? Don't allow yourself to be pulled by it. And through these tests and these purgations, another one. I'll give 3 of them to make it a good number, right? Someone messages you wanting your help to do something. Can you come over here and help me do some lawn work? Your church they're doing some sort of landscape. They need your help. Are you going to volunteer? Or are you going to willingly, yeah, I'm on my way? Or are you going to kind of, oh man, I'm busy. I don't want to do this. I'm busy. I can't. And you just reject that. These are the things that you're tested with. And through them, you kind of are purified. This is the whole concept of theosis. And through these things, you're purified over and over and over through this long process where you get to a point where you gain love, you gain the ability to see Christ in in people, in the worst of the worst. And that's what I'm kind of talking about, is so many people are so quick to write off. Like, let's just use someone like Asmongold, one of these like people who you think are way too far gone. Completely write them off and focus on inner matters within the church and drama and stuff like that. And I know that was like a wild example, but like people like that who get gone and get sucked into things where they have no desire outside of it because they don't believe in anything beyond what easily makes them comfortable and happy. So there's that. On the note of seeing Christ in people, we also need to see God in creation. He is the creator. Now, humans have created terrible things, very innovative things, like take, for example, the gun. It's a marvel of engineering, especially when you get into like cult and you see the 1911 and the inner workings of how it works and the progression. But it's killed millions of people have been killed by them. So it's kind of a slippery slope. And from that route, usually we go with the idea that like, okay, it's the human using the tool that's bad. So the bad of it isn't the creation of this tool. The bad of it is the creation of the human concept to wield that tool and go and conquer something with it. That is the human creation kind of becoming a privation of good and coming up with an evil idea, if that makes any sense. So, me personally, the reason why I've been so much more recently open to certain things like the internet, gamers, all of these types of people, is because for so long I wrote these things off. But recently I've just been seeing, just like on my channel, I've talked about this for the longest, movies, TV shows, secular music, all of these things, there are so many beautiful elements to them of creation and innovation, if you will, that it is impossible for me not to see some sort of creator in the complexity of these things. And with that, we need to understand why certain people, while this is where it becomes a negative, to adopt these things full send and kind of put all of your time in it where you don't have time to do anything else, right? This is where they become a negative. Just like with that gun analogy that I gave you, people come up with this concept to go use it for bad. These creations, instead of like looking at them as a beautiful, complex system, they warp the idea of like, oh, I can feel content, I can feel comfortable if I put all my time and I just do this as much as possible. It makes me forget about all the negativity and the things I don't like being in my head. Again, that's where us sinful humans kind of warp the beautiful creation, the complex creation that we have been, the gift that we've been bestowed upon by being made in the image of God. And we have to understand that this is why these people become addicted to certain of these things. Now, I'm not talking about negative vices like lust or wrath or any of those things, but I'm talking about when people become enamored, enveloped, and just bound to a human creation. You see it with something productive like music or painting. The whole archetype of the starving artist just obsessed with his craft and everything else goes by the wayside. It's a warping of an idea. It should not be glorified. Someone neglecting other pursuits, neglecting trying to pursue that ascetical life for this creation, but instead, within a balanced way, utilizing it, seeing the creator in the creation, the complexity of it, the good of it, etc. So these are just some thoughts that I've been thinking of while I've taken this little hiatus from making videos and from social media. And just some thoughts to chew on. Anyway, boys, might start doing this a little bit more frequently, but I don't really have any concrete plans at the moment. Peace out, boys.